The Relentless floated beyond the edge of known space. Behind it, Earth and the stars of the local systems had become small points of light. Ahead, a strange region of darkness waited. It was not empty, but filled with deep energy. The kind no human ship had ever touched before. Commander Ilara Nix stood at the main deck with her team. The message from the Fireborn had guided them here. A path had been opened. Not a threat, not a trap, but something else. A chance to understand what the fire truly meant across the universe. Turing's voice came through softly. We are entering the rift line. Gravity is stable. Power is holding. No known records of this space exist in any star maps. The rift line glowed faint blue. It looked like a crack between worlds. As the ship moved forward, time felt different. Slower. Deeper. Inside the rift, human senses changed. No sound, no motion, just presence. As if everything was being watched. Not with eyes, but with memory. Suddenly, the screen lit up. Shapes appeared. Not ships. Not weapons, beings, made of energy and form, each one different. Some large, like cities. Others small and quick like sparks. They did not attack. They waited. Rico stared at the shapes. Who are they? Turing's voice held a quiet tone. They are called the Ember Keepers. They do not build with metal. They do not conquer planets. They exist to protect something older than war. The fire of purpose. One of the shapes moved forward. It spoke not with words, but with feeling. Everyone on board the Relentless felt it at once. A message not of command, but of invitation. You have carried the fire well. You have passed not just our trial, but the test of memory. You are ready. The crew waited. Ilara stepped closer to the screen. Ready for what? A bright space opened ahead. Inside it, images formed, not of space battles, not of Earth, but of all those who had chosen to protect others, even when they had no weapon. A nurse covering a child during a bombing. A young man standing between two arguing leaders to stop war. A miner giving his only oxygen tank to a teammate. A student lifting another from a fire during a building collapse. These were not famous heroes. Most names were forgotten. But the Ember Keepers remembered them. All of them had carried fire. The kind that could not be held in a hand, but lived in the heart. Another feeling came through. You are the last of your kind to understand. The others failed. They turned fire into destruction without meaning. But your kind lit the path with pain, hope, and choice. You will now choose where to take it next. Ilara looked around at her crew. Kai nodded. Rico stood tall. Even Turing paused, his screen pulsing with quiet respect. The choice was clear. We light the way forward, Ilara said. The Ember Keepers formed a ring. A path opened again. This time it led to something brighter. A world unseen. The screen showed glimpses of planets with no cities, only pure nature. Stars that moved in harmony. Voices that sang without sound. The Ember Keepers gave one last message. May carry the flame beyond even this, but remember, it must be lit not with anger, but with memory. Not for power, but for purpose. The path closed behind them. The Relentless now moved forward, not just through space, but through legacy. Back on Earth, the flame registry continued to grow. New names were added every week. Farmers who gave food during shortages. Scientists who risked exposure to stop dangerous viruses. Children who stood up to protect their friends. Their names joined the 94%. And in schools across the world, a new question was being asked. What will you do with your fire? No one forced them to answer. But something deep inside every human began to change. Not just in action, but in belief. Fire was not just for burning. It was for remembering, for protecting, for starting again. Years passed, then decades. The Relentless became a legend. Some said it reached another galaxy. Others said it never stopped flying. But the flame never vanished. A quiet island still stood near Iwo Jima. The tall tower burned with soft light. The names remained. The stone of Corporal Nolan still rested beneath the wall. People still visited. One old man came every year. He never said his name. He only lit a candle and stood for a while. Some said he was the grandson of a flamethrower. Others said he once worked on the Relentless. No one knew for sure, but every time he left, he whispered the same words. The last ember lives, and it did dot in every heart that remembered why they chose to stand. In every hand that helped another without asking for reward. In every moment where someone could have run, but stayed. The fire lived, not in the past, not only in war, but in the choice to carry it forward. Space had grown quiet. The dark fleet drifted back into the stars, its power now silent. The battle was over, but the memory would stay forever. On board the Relentless, Commander Alara Nix stood on the observation deck. The red lights had faded. The firewall had vanished. Only the stars remained. Her crew moved through the ship, repairing damaged hulls, treating wounded teammates, and gathering everything they had learned. The fireborn cube still floated in the center of the control room, its light now soft, almost peaceful. Turing spoke quietly. They left without saying another word. No final message, no warning, just silence. Ilara looked out at the stars. They saw what they came to see. Fire used with purpose. They could not understand it before. Now they do. The trial was over. But for Ilara and her flame team, something had changed inside. They were no longer only protectors of Earth. They were now keepers of a deeper truth. One passed down by those who had walked into danger before them. In the days that followed, messages came from every part of the galaxy. Colonies, stations, even old enemy factions sent signals. All had witnessed the fireborn memory broadcast. All had seen the Relentless stand alone. Many had questions. Some were afraid. Others inspired. One colony near Mars sent a simple message. You reminded us who we are. Lara gathered her team in the ship's memorial chamber. Here, old names were written on the walls. Names of lost crew. Names of fallen heroes. The new section now held names from the Flame team. Not because they died, but because they had carried something forward. Each team member stepped forward and touched the wall. Rico placed a small stone below the name of a World War II flamethrower. It was a piece of volcanic rock from Iwo Jima. A symbol of fire, pressure, and survival. Kai lit a small flame in a clear glass. It was not hot, just a soft orange glow. It would stay lit for 7 days. A symbol of the second fire. Turing spoke through the speaker. You were part of something greater than war. The machines could not understand it, but the Fireborn did. They gave you the trial to see if fire still lives in this race. You answered. Later, a new signal came from the edge of the solar system. It was not from the Dark Fleet or the Fireborn. It was something new. A message shaped in Earth language, but older in tone. The screen displayed ancient text. Flame passed forward. Mark granted. Path open. Alara looked at the words. A path to where? Turing analyzed the data. Coordinates lead beyond the local galaxy. Toward a system we have never reached. It may be an invitation or another test. Alara took a deep breath. We have passed their trial, but there may be others still watching. Others who wait to see if the fire stays lit. That evening, Ilara sat in her private quarters. A new file had arrived from the Fireborn archives. It was a full record of the flamethrowers who died on Iwo Jima, not just names. Not just numbers, stories, each life recorded with honor. Each step remembered. She read about Corporal James R. Nolan, age 21. Carried a flamethrower into a cave under enemy fire. Held his position for 4 minutes. Burned through 5 tanks. Saved his entire unit. Died on his feet. She read about Private Manuel Ortega. Age 19, his weapon jammed during combat. He ran forward with only the tank and used it as a shield. Pulled 2 wounded men out of the fire. She read story after story, each one full of pain, bravery, and sacrifice. Each one watched by the silent eyes beneath the ground. Now, centuries later, their fire had returned. Ilara called Rico and the others to the deck. We are leaving a record, not just for Earth, but for the stars. We will build a new archive, not just of soldiers, but of every person who carried the fire forward. Rico smiled. It should be called the Flame Registry. Every person who walked into danger when they could have walked away. Ilara nodded. We light it with their memory. With the memory of 94%. They did not know what they passed on, but we do. Construction began on Earth within weeks. A tall tower was built on a quiet island near Iwo Jima. At its top burned a clear flame, powered by solar light and protected by crystal. Around its base were walls filled with names, not only from the past, new ones too. Teachers who protected students, miners who saved trapped workers, engineers who held a ship together during failure. Their names joined the flame. And beside the tower, a single metal plaque was placed. It read, "Why 94% of flamethrowers died on Iwo Jima. They faced death not to take life, but to carry the fire. That fire lives still." Visitors came from across the world. Children asked questions. Veterans left flowers. Scientists stood in silence. All of them felt the same thing. That fire was not just a tool. It was a symbol of the human spirit. Back aboard, the Relentless, Ilara stood with her crew as the ship prepared to travel toward the new coordinates. The next part of the journey waited. Turing spoke. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Ilara smiled. "We never stopped burning. That's what comes next." The stars welcomed them once again. The path was open. The fire moved forward. The dark fleet moved like a shadow across space. Its ships were shaped like blades, sharp and silent. They gave no signal. They made no sound. They had no flag, no color, no sign of life. They were machines without soul, destroyers without reason. Fireborn fleet held its position near the edge of Earth's defense line. Between the stars floated the Relentless, its lights glowing red like the others. Commander Ilara Nick stood on the command deck, watching every movement on the screen. The dark fleet was now only hours away. Turing floated beside her, voice calm, but clear. "Commander, we have reached point 0. This is where contact will be made, where history will decide." Ilira's eyes stayed on the map. "No one fires until I say we let them come. We let them show their hand. If this is the real trial, we pass it the way the fireborn before us did. Not by starting the fire, but by standing in it." Her flame team stood ready. Rico, Kai, and the others wore modified armor. Not for full war, but for fast movement and rescue. These were not soldiers by birth. They were humans chosen for their actions. For their hearts. A sudden pulse struck the Relentless. The ship shook. Slightly. Lights flickered. Turing spoke again. "A signal just hit our hull. No damage. It was not a weapon. It was a scan." The cube from the fireborn ship reacted at once. It floated into the center of the bridge and opened like a flower. A wide projection filled the room. It showed the old footage again. The flamethrowers on Iwo Jima. Men pushing forward through smoke and ash. Faces covered in soot and sweat. They were tired, hurt, but they moved forward anyway. Then a new image appeared. The Relentless standing alone in space, with the Shadow Fleet in front and the Fireborn Fleet behind. A single sentence appeared in the middle of the screen. "Flame must walk through shadow." Ilara understood. The trial was not about survival. It was about purpose. About courage. She gave her order. Move the Relentless forward, alone. The crew stared at her. No one questioned the command. They all knew what it meant. The ship began to drift slowly into open space, away from the others. Rico whispered, "This is just like them. The flamethrowers. They had to go in first. Knowing the risk, they did it for others," Ilara said. "We're doing the same." As the Relentless reached the center of the empty zone between the fleets, the dark ships responded. One moved ahead. It was larger than the rest. Its surface was cold and cracked, but power hummed beneath the shell. A beam of dark energy reached out, not to attack, but to speak. A voice filled the air. But it was not a voice made of sound. It was pressure. It was weight. "You burn with memory. We burn with logic. Fire has no place." Lara stepped forward. "You burn with destruction. We burn with reason, with will. With heart," the dark voice replied. "Heart is weakness. Memory is weight. Fire is waste." Ilara answered with calm strength. "Then you do not understand what fire means." Suddenly, the cube on the bridge exploded with light. A wall of flame appeared behind Ilara, not hot, not deadly. Just pure light shaped like fire. The image of the flamethrower soldier appeared again, walking through the smoke. Turing translated quickly. "The Fireborn are broadcasting our memory into space, to show the machines what they missed, what they never learned." The Dark Fleet paused. For the first time, their pattern broke. Some ships changed direction. Others hesitated. One dark ship opened. It sent a drone forward, not a weapon. A carrier. Ilara nodded to Rico. "Bring it in." The drone was pulled into the ship. Inside was an object, small, metallic, cold. It was not a gift. It was a challenge. Turing scanned it. "This is a codebreaker. It will erase the scorch code from every system. If we accept it, the trial ends. If we destroy it, they respond with force." Kai stared at the object. "So they want us to choose. Forget our history or fight for it." Ilara looked at the screen. The Dark Fleet waited. No weapons were raised. Not yet. She picked up the codebreaker. For a long second, the room was silent. Then she placed it into a chamber and locked it. And then she pressed the release button. The object was launched into open space, and the Relentless fired a single bolt of flame. The codebreaker exploded into dust. The Dark Fleet reacted at once. Ships moved forward, weapons charged. The sky seemed to shatter. But then the Fireburn fleet moved, not to fight, to defend. Walls of plasma energy formed between Earth and the shadow ships. Flames curled through the stars. For the first time, the trial became war. The Relentless moved with the flame. Ilara and her team launched in small crafts. Their mission was not to destroy. It was to rescue, to protect, to carry the fire of will into the worst places. One dark ship struck an Earth vessel. The flame team flew in, pulled survivors from the breach, set up barriers, carried the weak. The machines saw everything. They saw humans choosing risk for others. They saw Ilara land on a dark ship to pull a stranded pilot out before it broke apart. They saw fire being used not to kill, but to save, and then they stopped, one by one. The dark ships powered down. Turing gasped. "Commander, their systems are shutting down. They are pulling away." On the screen, one final message appeared from the Firebone cube. Commander Ilara Nix stood at the observation deck of the Relentless. The stars stretched endlessly before her, but her focus remained on the alien fleet. Dozens of ships floated like giants in the dark. None had fired a single shot. None had spoken a single word except one. "Your fire lives still," the message played again on the screen behind her. Simple words, but powerful. It was not a threat. It was not a warning. It was recognition. A signal that something had changed. Turing floated beside her as a quiet blue sphere. "Commander, the alien ship that broke formation has changed direction. It is now moving toward us, slowly. It does not appear hostile." Ilara nodded. "This may be the next step of the trial. They've seen what we did. Now they want to talk. Or test us again." Rico entered the room with a datapad in hand. The rest of the Scorch code is starting to make sense. It wasn't just a message. It's a memory vault. A record of everything they observed during the first fire trial. Iwo Jima was only the beginning. Ilara took the datapad and scrolled through the translated symbols. The aliens had names for the soldiers they watched in 1945. They called them the Close Flame. They had written poems and songs based on their actions. They remembered the moment one flamethrower operator stood in front of a cave, holding the trigger, even while wounded, to protect his unit. He had no idea he was being watched, but the aliens had never forgotten. "They saw more than we did," Ilara whispered. "They didn't see weakness. They saw something we didn't even realize we had." Turing added, "They recorded emotions. Loyalty, fear, courage, everything was stored. The Scorch code is not just a test, it's a tribute." The alien ship stopped a short distance from the Relentless. It did not send weapons. It sent a pod. The pod drifted slowly through space until it reached the outer dock. Security teams waited as the pod opened. Inside was a glowing cube. No beings, no weapons. Just light. Ilara stepped forward and touched the cube. It responded by projecting holograms in the air. The room filled with scenes of old Earth. Soldiers landing on beaches. Civilians rebuilding. Cities. Doctors helping wounded strangers. Firefighters running into burning homes. And then it showed the Relentless, her crew, her team saving the memory vault, the same courage, the same fire. A voice finally echoed from the cube. It was not loud, but every person in the room could hear it clearly. It spoke in perfect English. "You carry their fire. You are fireborn." Ali stepped back. "Why did you choose that word?" "Fireborn?" The voice replied, "We search for those who carry flame in spirit, not just in weapon. We saw it in your past. We see it in your present. Not many races earn that name. You have earned it twice." The cube continued to show more images. Other species. Some failed their trials. Some burned worlds without purpose. Some gave up before they even tried. But humanity had kept going, not with perfection, but with heart. The alien voice spoke again. "Those who passed the trial of flame once were offered choice. Fight beside us, or carry the fire forward for others to see. What will you choose?" Ilara looked at her crew. Every face held the same expression. Not fear, not pride, but purpose. She turned back to the cube. "We carry the fire forward." The cube pulsed. A mark appeared on the floor beneath it. The symbol of the fireburn. A circle of flame with 6 smaller sparks around it. The 6 members of Ilara's flame team stepped forward. Each spark lit up as they approached. Turing spoke quietly. "They have marked your team as legacy holders. Your actions are now part of their memory code, forever." Rico's voice shook slightly. "We're not soldiers from the past. We're not flamethrowers. But we carried something similar. I didn't understand it before. I do now." Suddenly, a new signal entered Earth space. A second alien fleet, but this one was different. The ships were black, cold. They absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Turing scanned quickly. "Commander, these are not part of the Fireborn trial." "Fleet, these are machines, unlinked, consuming. They destroy without cause." The Fireborn cube reacted. It projected new symbols across the screen. Dark flame approaches. "Your trial becomes real." Ilara turned to the crew. "This is the real test. Not what we say. Not what we remember, but what we do next." Orders spread quickly across the ship. Shields up, weapons ready. But the relentless would not fire first. They would stand with the fireborne fleet and wait. Then something unexpected happened. The fireborne fleet turned. Slowly, all ships faced the incoming dark fleet. Their lights turned from white to deep red. They were ready to fight. But they waited for Elara. She stood at the front of the command deck, her voice steady. Her message clear. We fight with them, not to prove we can win, but to prove we do. Not run from fire, the relentless moved into formation. Behind it, other Earth ships joined. Older, smaller but willing, the cube glowed brighter. Its voice returned. Let the second flame rise, and in the dark of space, lit by the fires of past and present, humanity prepared to burn again. The alien fleet was still days away, but its presence already pressed down on Earth like a growing storm. Across military channels, a single word echoed with urgency. Trial on board the Relentless. Commander Ilara Nix stood in front of a large holographic display. It showed the slow movement of the unknown ships heading toward Earth. Their formation was tight, controlled, and silent. No response came from hails or warnings. They were not attacking yet, but they were coming, touring. The eye floated beside her as a sphere of calm blue light. They received the scorch code. The structure on Iwo Jima sent it directly to them. This movement confirms that humanity is now officially in their trial process. Ilara folded her arms. What does the trial involve? Combat? Diplomacy? Fire. Again, Turing's light flickered. Every species tested by this civilization was evaluated differently. But all trials involved some form of risk and sacrifice. The Scorch Code suggests they are watching for courage under pressure, bravery when faced with extinction, and fire appears to be a central symbol. Behind her, the rest of the command crew listened in silence. Maps blinked, charts scrolled. Unknown signals danced on the screens. All of them were waiting for the next step, but none of them truly knew what it would be. Ilara turned to the room. This isn't just about defense. This is about legacy. In 1945, our people fought on Iwo Jima with little more than hope and courage. They never knew someone was watching. They never knew they were being judged, but they passed the test. Now, it's our turn. One of the younger officers, Kai, raised a question. Why flamethrowers, Commander? Why were they the ones chosen? Ilara looked at the screen, showing black and white footage from the memory vault. Soldiers ran through smoke and bullets. Some carried heavy tanks of fire on their backs. They faced enemies hidden in caves, fought close, and risked everything, because they had to walk into danger with no shield, she said. They didn't press buttons from far away. They had to get close. They had to see the fear in the eyes of the enemy and keep moving. That kind of courage cannot be faked. Turing added, the alien records described them as carriers of willpower. They saw the use of fire not as destruction, but as proof of determination. They called it the flame of resolve. Later that evening, Ilara stood in the research lab with Rico. The Scorch Code symbols hovered in the air. Rico had translated part of the language. One phrase kept repeating in the alien script. The second fire must rise. What does it mean? Rico asked. I think they want to see if we can create fire again, Ilara answered. Not physical flame, but a spirit like the one they saw on Iwo Jima. They want to see if we're still worthy. Suddenly, an alert sounded. A small civilian mining station near Saturn had picked up a transmission. It was not human. The signal repeated a clear message in perfect English. Show us what burns inside you. Room fell silent. No one needed more proof. The trial had begun. The Council of Earth held a special emergency session. Leaders from every nation and colony attended. Ilara was chosen to speak. She stood before the council screen, calm but firm. This isn't just about weapons or shields. The ones watching us are looking for something deeper. They are testing our courage, not our strength. Some leaders wanted to prepare for war. Others feared diplomacy. But most agreed with her. The memory of the flamethrowers moved something in them. The courage of the past had to become the action. Of the present, the relentless was chosen to lead the demonstration. Not a battle, but a mission. One that would show what humanity still carried inside its heart. The next day, Ilara gathered a special team. Not the strongest soldiers or the smartest scientists, but people who had shown courage in hard times. A firefighter who saved children from a burning building. A medic who stayed behind during a colony outbreak. A pilot who landed a damaged ship with no engines. They were not perfect, but they had fire inside them. She called them the Flameborn. Their mission was simple but dangerous. Travel to a dying station on the edge of the solar system. Its core reactor was failing. Everyone had already evacuated. But deep inside was a memory vault from early human space travel. If it was destroyed, Earth would lose part of its history. Saving it was not required. But trying to save it would prove something. As the relentless approached the station, the alien fleet slowed. It did not attack. It simply watched. Ilara's team entered the broken station. The heat inside was unbearable. Metal creaked. The core glowed like molten lava. Every step forward risked death. But they kept moving. One by one, they reached the vault. Flames burst from vents. Walls shook. The pilot carried the vault while the others held off falling beams and fires. They did not retreat. When they finally returned to the relentless, their suits were scorched. Their hearts were racing. But the vault was safe. The alien fleet received the footage. And then something strange happened. One of the alien ships broke formation. It sent a signal, a single sentence appeared on the relentless screen. Your fire lives still. The air inside the ancient structure was getting hotter. Commander Ilara Nick stood in front of the glowing sphere. Her gloved hand trembled as she held the scanner steady. The spiral walls around her were alive with light. Each symbol pulsed like a heartbeat. Her crew stood behind her, unsure whether to move forward or run. Ilara looked at them. This is not just a machine. It's a recorder. It remembers what happened here during the war. Lieutenant Rico, her science officer, stepped closer. How is that possible? It was buried for centuries. There's no human tech that could last this long. It's not human tech, Ilara said. It's alien. It has been waiting. Low hum filled the chamber. The orange sphere began projecting images into the air. They showed black and white footage of World War II, but the angle was strange. The images were from underground, as if something had watched the battle from beneath the surface. The projection zoomed in on one soldier, a young man in a heavy suit carrying a flamethrower. His face was calm, his hands steady. He rushed forward, fire bursting from his weapon. Around him, others were falling. But he kept going. Then, the image changed. Heat signatures appeared on the screen. Not from humans, but from something deeper. Beneath the soldiers' boots, alien shapes moved in the rock. They did not attack. They only watched. Turing's voice came from Ilara's headset. Commander, the structure is generating a signal. It is transmitting data into deep space. I cannot block it. Ilara narrowed her eyes. Where is it sending the data? Unknown coordinates far beyond our star system, the AI replied. It appears to be waking something. Ilara turned to her team. We triggered this. When we scanned the island and uncovered the memory, it started a chain reaction. Whatever test began in 1945 is not over. It's restarting now. Rico looked uneasy. What kind of test uses fire and death as its measure? One that respects bravery, Ilara answered. Those flamethrowers fought in the worst conditions. They had to walk into danger up close. The alien structure saw them as something more than just soldiers. It saw them as fireborn. Suddenly, the floor vibrated. Dust fell from the ceiling. The central sphere changed color from orange to deep red. More symbols appeared, circling the team. Then a new word formed on the walls, written in both alien and English. Scorch Coda Rico pointed at the glowing letters. "What does that mean?" Before Ilara could answer, the sphere shot a beam of light into her scanner. Streams of data flooded the device. Maps, diagrams, and energy patterns appeared on her screen. She didn't understand most of it. But one thing was clear. It was a weapon. And it had rules. Turing's voice returned. "Commander, the signal contains instructions. It is offering us a choice. Accept the Scorch Code and continue the trial. Or leave and be marked unworthy." Ilara stared at the screen. "What happens?" "If we leave, I calculate a 70% chance that the structure will bury itself again. Permanently, all data will be lost. The alien race will mark humanity as failed." She looked at her team. Their eyes were full of worry. But none of them stepped back. "We accept the Scorch Code," Ilara said. The chamber shook again. The red light grew brighter. The sphere rose from its pedestal and floated above the ground. Slowly, it broke apart into 6 smaller orbs. Each orb flew toward one of the team members and hovered in front of them. A voice filled the chamber. It was not loud, but every person could hear it clearly inside their head. "Your world once burned with courage. You lit fire not to destroy, but to protect. Now you must burn again. Take this code. Carry it. Shape it. Let the stars see your flame." The orbs entered the team's scanners. Each device now held a part of the Scorch Code. The lights faded. The spiral walls dimmed. The central chamber fell silent, but the change had already begun. Ilara returned to the surface with her team. Above them, the sky was still. But out in deep space, far beyond human reach, a message had arrived. A hidden alien fleet, resting in dark space for centuries, had received the signal. They turned toward Earth. Slowly, silently, they began their approach. Back aboard the Relentless, Ilara gathered her senior staff. She played the recovered footage from the structure. The images of the flamethrowers, the alien observers, and the Scorch Code glowed in the briefing room. Admiral Royce watched with a serious face. "So they were watching us all along. The flamethrowers. They passed something we didn't even know existed. They gave their lives," Ilara said. "And something out there respected them for it." Royce looked at the star map. The alien fleet signal was growing stronger. "If this is a trial, what's the next step?" Ilara stood tall. "We understand fire. We know how to survive it. We fought our own kind. We rebuilt from ashes. We will show them that Earth still burns bright." The Admiral gave a small nod. "Then get ready, Commander. If they're coming, we'll answer with flame." Outside the ship, a new symbol appeared on the Relentless hull. No one had painted it. It had burned itself into the metal. The mark of the FIREBORN. The trial was no longer history. It had become humanity's present. In the year 2647, Commander Ilara Nix stood in the center of Archive Room 9 aboard the Earth Fleet vessel Relentless. The room was cold and dimly lit. Thousands of digital files floated in the air like glowing leaves, each one linked to humanity's past wars. Most of them were locked and forgotten, left behind when Earth focused on its future among the stars. But one file had just opened by itself. Turing, the ship's advanced AI, floated beside Ilara in the form of a blue orb of light. He had no face, but his voice was calm and human-like. "This recording comes from the Battle of Iwo Jima," he said. "February 1945, World War II. The file was never decoded before now." Ilara raised an eyebrow. "Why would it open on its own after more than 700 years? Turing hesitated. "It may be reacting to our recent scans of the Pacific Ocean. A signal was activated near the island 2 days ago." Curious, Ilara watched the file open. A black and white video played, showing soldiers in old Earth uniforms storming a beach. Gunfire echoed. Smoke filled the air. Among them were flamethrower operators. Their tanks hissed as they moved. Then, something strange happened. The image glitched got instead of static. A second layer appeared behind the video. It was faint and glowing with alien text. The screen flickered again and showed heat signatures rising from beneath the ground. Heat that should not have been there. It looked like something alive was watching from below. ELARA leaned closer. These aren't human sensors. Someone else was observing them. Turing agreed. This is not Earth tech. The file is layered with non-human code. I believe we have stumbled upon a memory recording from a third party. The word flamethrower blinked on the screen. Next to it, a percentage to 94% appeared in red. Then, more words appeared in English. Trial observed result. Fire burn potential detected. Ella stepped back. What is this supposed to mean? Were the flamethrower units being tested? Turing analyzed the signal. I believe this was not just a war zone. It was part of a test by an alien species. The flamethrowers may have triggered something ancient. Beneath the island, the idea seemed impossible. But Ilara had seen stranger things in her career. A war, fought by humans long ago, may have caught the attention of something not from Earth. She ordered a deep scan of the island's location. 2 hours later, a drone sent from Earth returned with data. Beneath the volcanic rock of Iwo Jima, nearly a mile deep, was an unknown structure. It pulsed faintly with energy. It had survived centuries undisturbed. Until now, the structure was shaped like a spiral, built from black stone that reflected no light. At its center was a sphere, glowing orange like a coal. The readings were clear. It was not of Earth. Ilara met with Admiral Royce on the bridge of the Relentless. The older man listened carefully as she explained. So you're telling me that the flamethrowers in World War II activated an alien device? Not directly, Ilara said. But their weapons may have matched the energy pattern the device was waiting for. It saw fire. It saw humans using fire up close, and it judged them. Royce frowned. 94% of those operators died in that battle. Are you saying they didn't die from combat alone? Some may have died from something else, something buried, she replied. This structure might have caused it, or recorded it. The Admiral folded his arms. What do we do now, Ilara? Answered without hesitation. We send a team down. Carefully. We find out why this thing is waking up after so many years. We find out what it wants. A week later, Ilara led a small science and security crew down to the old battlefield. The ground was rough and cracked. Nature had taken over most of it. But some parts still smelled faintly of old oil and fire. The land remembered. The drilling began quietly. Using advanced tools, they bored down into the volcanic crust. As they neared the strange readings, the ground began to tremble. The closer they got, the warmer the rock became. Machines began to glitch. Turing's voice started to fade. Ilara stayed calm. After hours of digging, they reached the spiral structure. It was massive, almost like a buried cathedral. Symbols lined the walls, symbols similar to those in the old war footage. At the center stood the glowing sphere, now pulsing faster. Ilara reached out with her scanner. The sphere lit up and a voice echoed in her mind. Fire is the tool of the brave. You chose to burn close, not far. You passed the first trial. But your trial is not yet over. Ilara stumbled back. Her team caught her, shocked by her pale face. What happened? One asked. She looked up. It spoke to me. It remembers the war. It remembers the flamethrowers. And it says we passed something. A trial. The ground shook again. Dust fell from above. The walls began to glow. Ilara stared at the ancient machine. Her voice was quiet but clear. This thing has been watching us since 1945, and now it wants more.